Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined as always by my co-host, Jacob Boyers. And this tumultuous Kentucky basketball 2025-2026 season has come to an end at the hands of the Iowa State Cyclones. They're in St. Louis, Missouri. Disgusting game, really, outside of the first 10 minutes where the Cats looked awesome for a good amount of that time. Iowa State made a couple of changes, started pressuring the ball a little bit more. Cats just couldn't find any answers. They lose 82-63. They advance to the Sweet 16, and Kentucky has now furthered their drought of not making the Elite Eight another season. Jake, I don't know what to say, man. This has been such a roller coaster season, and it feels like we're right back down at the bottom again. And I, for one, am kind of just glad that it's over. Hopefully we can press reset and start getting some portal guys coming in and some recruits to start coming in as well.
You need it, man, because there's not a lot of positive on the basketball front as of right now. I text you at one point because you jokingly text at halftime, tell me something to make me feel positive, and I text you about 10 minutes into the second half and said the best positive I got is that this horrific season, and honestly one of the most frustrating seasons, and I know after we talk about the game we'll talk about the season in a whole, but I think it was, even with the COVID team, the most frustrating season I've been a part of watching, and my positive is that it's now at least finally over. Which it's a shame to feel that way, but this game I think kind of sums up the year to a T. You see the team play really good for about 10 minutes. Iowa State makes an adjustment. Kentucky makes 0 adjustments, and I'll have to pull back up some of the stats that I saw from Sunday, but you just get your teeth kicked in for the remaining 30 minutes of that game and are never really competitive even. That going into halftime down 1, it felt like you were clinging on to be in that game by only, within a few points. So, I think Sunday summed up the season pretty well. You got some good Ortega moments, some frustrating Ortega moments. You got to see how valuable Denzel was to this team, and the frustrating part, everybody else's game. I mean, even Colin Chandler makes a couple threes to start, kind of the same roller coaster of a season he has, plays awful, can't dribble the ball for 20 minutes, and then makes a freak athletic play. It just kind of felt like it was just the perfect end to this disaster of a year.
Yeah, and I texted you looking for some positivity at halftime because I think we both had felt that with Iowa State getting that lead at halftime, we just knew this game was over. And I'm not going to say these guys had quit during the game, but it wasn't that same energy that they had for the first 10 minutes of the game, what they had the last 5 of that first half. And I had texted you at halftime. I was like trying to find something positive to look at, and I was like, hey, man, we're battling with Iowa State. We're down 1, and Ortega only has 5 points.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something to get positive for. And nothing really just ever materialized for this Cats team. And turnovers, I mean, it's really just the name of the game. 12 turnovers in the first half, and then they had 8 in the second half for 20 combined turnovers. They averaged 10.5 coming into this game. You can't beat almost anybody like that, let alone a really good Iowa State team. And this had really broke in your favor. They're out their best player. You had a chance to capitalize. You didn't, and that's really just kind of the story of the entire season.
Yeah, and I mean, we heard Mark Pope say a few weeks ago, like you can almost tell if we're going to win or lose based on if we have 11 or less turnovers, and you had 12 in the first half, and it was a onslaught of just one after another, whether it was Colin. Man, I understand like Pope's offense is, to get Biggs the ball at the top of the key, but that's not the recipe when you're playing that Iowa State pressure. I mean, there was way too much. Even Colin did it so much where he just got crossed half court and would pick up his dribble and he's standing there waiting for someone to come help, but he's getting double teamed and next thing you know, bam, turnover. I I didn't have I don't have a ton to say about this game just because I think we kind of hit it. It was just a extremely gross game, a game that I don't want to say you weren't prepared because you finally came out and got off to a good start, which is something we've, begged for out of this team for most of the season. And you finally get that, but then the lack of adjustments, it was a game that I I can't believe I did this. I screamed at the TV with 12 minutes in the second half with some explicative words that put BG in the game. Screaming. I mean, it was 8. No offense to him. We've talked about how great Malachi's been all year, but he struggled obviously down the stretch of the season and was playing. He couldn't play in this game. He wasn't tough enough at this particular time. Next year, that's a different conversation. But like this game was not the game for him, and you left him out there for 8 minutes in the second half to start the half. A pattern that you haven't done in any game this season and a half. BG is always in within that
First media timeout.
yeah.
Yep.
And this game, for some reason, you decide to let him roll until the under 12 timeout. Like, it makes no sense, man. I don't understand what this coaching staff's thinking a lot of the times, which is so frustrating. But, like, it's almost like if Malachi would have came out and been great in the second half and, made a couple shots, gotten a block, you would have saw him at the under 16 timeout getting yanked. But,
100%.
So I don't know. I couldn't believe it. Even my dad was like, "Did you just yell for Brandon Garrison to be in the game?" Yep, yeah. That's where we are. But
it's where we had gotten. I mean, BG had earned that towards the end of the season. I mean, unfortunately, it's something to where we've had to kind of monitor what Brandon Garrison you're getting, but he had really turned it on at the end of the year. And even in this game, wasn't really a scoring threat, but 6 rebounds in 22 minutes, and he was still playing physical, and he was giving you a little bit, I don't want to say like calmness or poise, but he wasn't letting himself get sped up like a lot of the other guys were. He was kind of just playing, just BG being BG, saying it in, the simplest terms. I don't, they, the lack of offensive adjustment after you start off so hot. Like Iowa State is going to have adjustments for when you start off 20-9. There's going to be something. They're going to look at themselves and be like, we're losing to a pretty bad Kentucky team. We're kind of getting handled pretty easily. They're making shots. They're doing this, things that we weren't expecting them to do. You knew they were going to come out with an adjustment. And the fact that you had no answer that's, you go into a game plan wanting to be up 20-9, So why there was no sense of answer. And there wasn't an answer for the entire game. It wasn't just that 10-minute spot, in the first half. It was the entire game. At one point, Iowa State was on a 63-33 run. Like, what does that even mean? Like, how is that possible? I don't even, like, even the worst teams in college basketball can find a way to, I mean, not have it's maddening. It really is. And I think this game specifically, and you kind of brought it up a little bit earlier, just shows the importance of having a viable point guard in the slightest. Denzel Aberdeen, I'm not going to even say this was a great Denzel Aberdeen game, or this was, one of his better ones. Hit 4 threes, that's always nice. Only had a single assist, had 4 turnovers as well. But you saw when he came off the floor just how bad this team was. You insert Jasper Johnson into the lineup, immediate 9 points given up. And the part that really frustrated me the most is that a lot of this was very predictable. When they started pressuring and started doing these things, like this was you knew Jasper and Colin weren't going to be the guys that you wanted to get the ball past half court. Like you knew that coming in. We've seen Colin struggle with it. We've seen Jasper struggle with it all season. And, I hate to say this because I'm going to give you a little bit of credit. I mean, it was to the same point of what we had with Travis Perry last year. You're just like, oh, please get it past half court. Please get it past half court. And he immediately gets his pocket picked, and they're going down the other way and knocking a shot down. I'm not putting this all on Jasper. I've heard a lot of that from other media outlets and everything, and you've seen what his uncle has said about some parts of the fan base. And every fan base has people who say just ridiculous things. That's not something that's just Big Blue Nation. That's not something that's just our fan base. Like we have Reds fans, Jake. We're Reds fans. Opening day is tomorrow. Hunter Green's going to be out until July. I'm sure you don't want to see things that Hunter Green has been tagged in on X or anything like that. It's every fan base across sports. But to put him in a spot like that where you knew almost the outcome before it happened, you really just set the kid up for failure. And I think that's what they had done to him all season long.
Yeah, I mean, I said that to an extent too about, Travis last year. Unfortunately, man, I'm not going to pile on him, but I don't think the kid's very good, and I don't know if he's a player at this level, at least in the coming years. I mean, maybe by the time he gets stronger, and in 2 to 3 years he's a high level SEC player, possibly. I don't see it right now, but I'm with you. It's not the reason you lost. There were a lot of guys that didn't play well, and a lot of guys that played a lot of minutes that unfortunately didn't play well. And even with the start he had, I think you could argue, like Colin might have been your worst player on Sunday, and he got beat a lot defensively. The turnovers. I don't know how you could look at this game knowing it's win or go home and feel comfortable even for a minute taking Denzel and Ortega off the floor, especially Denzel. A couple points about Denzel real quick because I do want to touch on it. We've talked about how much he's grown on us as a player over the last 3 months here from where he was at the end of December in our minds. Mm-hmm. I gotta tell you, man, he played so well that it really doesn't give a lot of validity to me about the Jalen Lowe injury as like an excuse, because as good as I thought Jalen Lowe would be for this team, I think you can say Denzel gave you that and more once he got comfortable in the point guard. And maybe you say you win an extra game or two in December with Jalen Lowe at point guard because Denzel wasn't comfortable in it yet, but I think everything you got from Denzel down the last 3 months is what you would have expected out of your point guard and then some. And then back to the, lack of adjustments. Especially when it is Colin or Jasper having to bring the ball up, we weren't trying to do anything to help them. It was just hand them the ball.
We haven't done that anytime, and that's
you watch other teams; they're coming up and setting screens in the backcourt.
If you want to see something. And Kentucky struggled with West Virginia's pressure, the women's team, on Monday, but there was sets to get at least the ball up to half court. If there were any turnovers, it was in the half court, and it was something of that nature. But just there was no even like semblance of let's try this. Like we've worked on this for this situation. It's almost like they were surprised that you could press them before half court, and we don't have
a team that does it all the time.
Yeah, we don't have any ball handlers like Shea or De'Aaron or guys like that you just know like, oh, it's fine. Like we don't have any of those guys. Even Denzel, I would make an argument that he's not that guy either. And that's the part that frustrates me the most. It seems like, and you kind of brought up, you thought, maybe their pregame was set up correctly just based on the start that we got. I'd almost argue that was just blind luck and coming out and knocking down shots early. And Iowa State wasn't knocking down shots early. I don't think that was anything that was game plan specific. It was more just Iowa State gave you those shots, you hit them, they weren't hitting theirs. They made an adjustment, you didn't. and then they kicked your ass for 30 minutes straight.
Yeah, I mean, you very well could be right. I thought we did good things to get open shots in that early stretch. But to your point, once Iowa State switched to that intense ball pressure, double team as soon as you pick up your dribble, we had no answer. And anybody that watches Iowa State knows that that's coming at some point in the game. And it's like to look like you just weren't expecting it whatsoever is mind-boggling to me. I don't understand it.
I don't either. And just the kind of, I want to put a bow on this game because it's very depressing. I mean, really, the easiest way to say it is kind of surprised just looking back at the net points and seeing, the advanced analytics on some of these things. You mentioned Colin Chandler, you thought was the worst player on the floor for the Cats in this one, and that is extremely backed up with minus 9.6 net points in this game. Surprisingly enough, second best on the team was Jasper Johnson with 1.7. And that's the part that,
he got those last 5 minutes to inflate those numbers a little bit.
Again, I'm not going to say anything regarding Jasper, or actually I am. I don't know why I said that. I am going to say something regarding Jasper. Jake, do you remember Aiden Holloway? And again, this might not be the best comp just because of what he's doing in the news as of right now. But do you remember when he came into Auburn?
Nope.
Came into Auburn as a true freshman and was just not very good, like at all. Shot 32%, 30% from three, and that was playing 20 minutes a game. I think you can see a similar arc into what Jasper Johnson plays like and what Aiden Holloway plays like. I think Aiden's probably a better athlete. He's definitely a better salesman. I mean, we know that for sure. But I don't think Jasper is coming back. And this is where I want to steer our conversation going into who we think will return, who we think will be leaving, and potential targets and all of that. I'd actually really like to have Jasper back, personally. I know I'm probably in the minority on that. I think overtime elite specifically is a net negative for anybody who goes there. And we can talk different AAU basketball circuits and all of that, the EYBL. We can go into any sort of talk about that as well. I'll be very interested to see what Talon Kinney does next year at Kansas after going to overtime elite, because it doesn't seem like anybody who goes there is prepped for the next level immediately after. It seems like everybody takes a couple years to find their footing, or they're just generational athletes that leave and kind of they just are who they are. I personally think that's what it is. I think Jasper failed to get his body right for the season. I think that's a big part of it as well. But I would love to see Jasper back. I don't think there's a world in which it happens. And it's funny enough, we're talking about Aiden Holloway. I'm assuming that's probably where he's going to be going, unless North Carolina maybe makes a huge hire and he wants to go follow in that direction. But I'd like to have him back, but I think he's going to be leaving.
A couple things. I mean, who knows if just because the schools were interested in him the last go around, they may not have that same level of interest. Let me say, I'm not forcing Jasper out the door and being like, you got to leave. But
I know you're not, but that's I'd say 50% of the fan base is probably doing that.
I think realistically is how I feel about him, again, is very similar to how I felt about Travis Perry last year. He can come back if he's going to be willing to be a extreme reserve, right? You're going to be a guy that maybe plays 4 to 5 minutes a game, maybe. And if Jasper's okay with that, which it doesn't appear he's going to be, then I'm good with having him back. But I will not feel comfortable if you tell me that coming into next year, Jasper Johnson's going to be one of your top playing guards. I won't. It would have been the same way with Travis Perry this year. That would not be, in my mind, a recipe for a roster that can be what it needs to be next year with all the pressure.
Yeah, well, I think there's two different conversations, whether you feel comfortable with him, taking a giant step versus we're at the point now where you need guys just in general.
Sure.
And a guy who does have upside, I'm willing to take a chance on. He's already here. I mean, I'm not sure how much validity I'm putting into guys making the second year jump under Pope after this year. I'm not sure how much I'm buying into that, but I personally would really like to have him back. There's not that many guys that I'm going to look at and say we just can't have you back here. I think there's probably only a couple that are on this roster, and when you're talking about Jason Hart leaving, and that was your Dink Pate connection, and that was the guy who was talking to Tyron Stokes, and we can talk about whether we're okay with Hart leaving, whether we're a little rattled by it, whatever. That was your main recruiter still. Whether he was closing the door, I know you look at the recruiting class and you're like, well, main recruiter is leaving and he hasn't recruited anybody, so, we don't care. Who cares? He can go to SMU, whatever. You still need those relationships. And starting fresh with a brand new assistant, I can't imagine that's going to help with Tyron Stokes. I can't imagine that is going to help with Dink Pate or whoever you're going to go after. And that was really our only guy who was tied to the G League and had those connections there. I don't know, man. The more I
We'll
talk
say
about
real.
this entire situation, the more I just get negative on what's happening and, the trajectory in
Oh
which
yeah.
Kentucky basketball is going.
Oh yeah. Sunday I was extremely negative, and it wasn't just because of the performance we watched in the worst tournament loss since the 70s. But I will say real quick about Tyron Stokes. I don't know how much a relationship's going to matter there. It might just be, is Kansas going to offer the bag he wants, and if
Jake,
not,
we,
you
we might have a
supplement it.
relationship with Tyron Stokes. I don't know.
Um,
People are talking.
but yeah, I mean the program in general, man. I'm extremely down, and honestly, I I don't know if it's going to work here with Pope. I obviously don't feel great about it. This is as negative as I've ever felt about it. But what concerns me is much bigger in the entire athletic department and all the way up to the president of the university. And, I know Mitch is retiring. That gives some people some hope. If we hire Mitch 2.0, I expect more of this exact same thing. You hear Jack Givens, who I think would know, kind of talk about, the money that they had this year is not going to be there. I mean, how can it be? We have a president that's going out and saying we need to cut spending and drive revenue while simultaneously giving the old AD an extra $2.5 million
That's such a
for
wild
no
thing to
reason.
say 3 weeks after you talk about. I mean, and the thing
And now
is, they
you
had
have
came
one
out
of
and
your
said, "Yeah, go for it."
yeah, and now you have one of your biggest boosters coming out and voicing his concerns about it. And I know that booster donates a lot to football, but you don't think when they want to do something for the university in general, whether it's athletics or you know student related, that he's one of the people they hit up, and this is a booster that's going to be like, wait a minute, you're coming to me for an extra couple million when you just hand it Mitch this money for no reason at
Yeah.
all. You gave him 10 courtside seats for till the day he dies. So I look at the program as a whole right now, and I don't see a lot of positivities, man. I know we've talked about it before. I'm going to bring it up again. Back to the JMI deal. When we signed this deal with JMI, Mitch came out and said this is the cutting edge, and every other school is going to start doing this. And it's been a year and a half now, and not one other school has a.
I think it's been 7 months or 8 months, right around there.
I think, but they had it in talks, I guess, before that. But
Yeah.
regardless, it was kind of in the works. But there's not one other school that has a deal similar to this, where a third party entity is essentially having players sign contracts. And we were promised that it's the future, and again, nobody else is doing it. So I have I have issues much deeper than just Mark Pope and this staff. At the end of the day, man, if Pope doesn't work out next year, you can replace him. We saw that with Billy G. It didn't work. We hired Cal. Boom, we're right back and we're rolling. I think you can do that. But if you're constantly having these bigger picture issues, then it's a lot tougher to kind of save the program.
And I mean, that's a bad thing is like that's just where we're at when you're talking about all these things. And you read different articles and you see different things saying like, oh no, they have the money, and then you hear Jack, who you got to assume is like well connected to basketball donors, and I'm not sure if there's anybody that just shoots you straight more than Goose does. If he's saying he doesn't know if the funds are going to be there, I am going to tend to believe him. I don't know why he would come out and say something that he doesn't have it on pretty good authority.
Well, and it could also be that the staff's looking at it like we had this much money next year, and then when they go to ask for this money this time around, the donors are like, it's a little short.
I mean, it's hard to justify me giving you, let's just say theoretically, the Cats Talk podcast gave $50,000 to, this staff for NIL. After seeing this season and what you did with that money and seeing, not to take any like huge shots at anyone, seeing Jaden Quaintance play 4 games.
You paid a lot of money to a kid that had a torn ACL and MCL and ligament damage.
And it's like, and if you come asking that from me again, it's just, it's not going to happen. Like the return on investment was not there. And a lot of the times we're in a like society now where you have to get that instant return, instant gratification on things that you do. And to see that this was outside of the COVID year, you'd say the worst year in Kentucky basketball for since 2013?
Probably.
Going to NIT?
And even then, like, I know we had injuries this year, but you can kind of justify the injury a little more. Yeah, but you didn't
have the 6th pick of the draft.
Well, and if he doesn't tear his ACL, he's probably a top 3 pick. I mean, he was.
And they probably should have made the tournament anyways.
Yeah, he was one of the most dominant basketball or players in college basketball that year. I think it's the most. I'm not going to say disappointing, but I think it's by far the most frustrating season.
No, I think disappointing and frustrating because when you're seeing all this money thrown out there, you're talking about, oh, I got a Ferrari, man, I just can't wait to drive.
That's part of it.
Figure out the pieces. Like you're setting up the expectations for fans there. And I'm not saying you should go out and do the Mark Stoops method and not say anything and just like hope that the team's good and hopefully nobody comes for you afterwards. But there is a middle ground there. Like if you're going to come out and say this team's a Ferrari, it better be a damn good team and they better hit the ground running and you better be the guy at the wheel that's, finding all these adjustments to get them going, figuring out which ways to plug and fix this and anything goes down. I don't know about what Ferrari you saw. I saw like a used. I
saw the one after Leonardo
Toyota
DiCaprio
Yaris.
crushed. I saw the one after Leonardo DiCaprio, totals it in Wolf of Wall Street. That's the Ferrari I saw.
Because I mean, and the crazy thing is, like, I think the highlight of the season was that Purdue exhibition game. Like,
that or the second half of St. John's. Those are the two. Because somebody's text another somebody on this show and said
I said if Jaden Quaintance, so there was still a lot.
I saw someone call him the next Anthony Davis, and that this team was unbelievable. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, well, guess what? Hey, wait! I want to say something real quick before you throw me under the bus and then just move on really quick. I'm still wounded, laying after you rolled me over on the bus there. I would just like to say, what was the point of bringing Jaden Quaintance in, knowing the injury history, and you knew it wasn't just the ACL. Like, this was a complete knee restructure that he had to do.
Yeah.
Is he at an early age where it's going to regenerate faster and everything's going to hopefully be smoother, he's going to get stronger, all of this? Does he have a lot of time before we need him? Yes, you knew all that. Why was there no plan for him when he came back? There was zero plan. There was no getting him involved in anything. And the part that frustrates me the most is that a lot of these guys, I can't even be that upset with them that they didn't play well or they were upset about how they were used. Like when I look at Jasper, I can't imagine during the summer or like when he committed, he was told like, "Yep, you're probably going to get like 10 minutes a game. We'll find a way for you to get like 3 shots a game." And you're really just not going to play much. Granted, did Jasper go out and do a lot to earn more minutes? No. And that's something that I think specifically his family needs to understand more than anything. I get it's hard to, in basketball, when you're out there for a minute and a half, make a real impact on the game, but you still have to do it. Whether you got to make it with the minutes that you get. And with Jaden Quayton specifically, you had him come back against St. John's. Not a single thing was drawn up for Jaden Quayton's. That was just him being the best athlete on the floor, getting blocks, changing shots, getting putbacks. That was what like Dakari Johnson had to do for the first like 2 years of his career. Nothing gets drawn up for you. Everything you get, you got to go out there and work for and get it yourself.
Yeah.
And then you want to be surprised that, oh, he doesn't like the minutes that he's getting, and surprised that, oh man, maybe this knee's swelling up. Oh wait, his father takes to Twitter again. Like these are all things you have to know is coming, and this is what makes me more upset with the staff than anything. Because I fully believe if you have a system in place for Jaden Quayton's where he is remotely involved in the offense and really just involved with the team in general, he's playing in that entire season. At no point, he might take a game off, 2 games off, something like that, but he's fully back and ready to go.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I understand there's a lot of frustrations for the staff. I really do think Quayton's couldn't play. Like I think it was probably a lot worse than the staff led on, and trying to say it was just knee swelling one because they care about him, and there is some of this with the NBA. You don't want to make it sound like he re-aggravated. I think he probably came back too soon, and part of that I think shows that this kid wanted to play. He was pretty much forced the staff to play him in that St. John's game. They didn't want him to play there. So like I don't buy that he shut it down or anything like that. Now, as far as the staff, what are you doing? Like, man, you knew this was a risk when you took him, and you still paid him whatever the rumor amount of millions you paid him. You paid him 7 figures of some sort, and like Mark Pope talks about how you know how bad his knee was, and you still did it, and it all comes like I don't know, man. There's a lot with this roster. I don't know if you're ready to get into Pope's coaches show comments or where we want to go from here, but like there was a lot and that I didn't love, and kind of when he mentioned roster construction, like there were a lot of pieces that I think looking at just flat out didn't make sense putting them together. Whether it's Mo Diabate, who had a very important role in playing his role well, but it's like on paper you're looking at it like that's not a guy that's going to gel with Mark Pope's system. The last 3 or 4 games of Brandon Garrison were awesome, and we loved it, and it was the greatest thing in the world. He was atrocious for
the first 32.
Yeah, and you came into the season banking on him being your starting center. Like that's like you deserve criticism for that as well. It took Malachi Moreno being significantly better than I think anybody thought, including Pope. If you asked Pope back in May of last year, he would have not have told you that he thought Malachi Moreno could be a starting center in the SEC. And you came in with the plan that it was going to be Garrison. Like just all this stuff just simply didn't work out. And why? Who knows? I think there's plenty of reasons we can go into as to why it didn't. But like this roster just wasn't constructed very good. And again, I thought Jalen Lowe could be really good here. Even adding him into this, I don't know how he makes this team that much better, because I think one, you've mentioned it before the season, like he's not really a Mark Pope style point guard. And two, like, was he going to add outside shooting? Probably not really. Like,
No.
him, Ortega, and Denzel together, like, how would that look? I don't really know. I guess based on what you saw the last few
We
weeks from
saw it a
Colin.
little bit, and it looked terrible.
Yeah, I mean, maybe based on what you saw the last 3 weeks from Colin Chandler, you say it's an upgrade from that. But like, that's really it. I don't expect them to kind of gel together. So,
Yeah. And I want to say one thing real quick to your like Jalen Lowe point and like how would that look? I just don't think, and this is no shot at him at all because the 2 years that he had were unbelievably terrific and he was a very good player. I don't think Ortega fits the system either. Like we talk about how Mohamed Diabate doesn't fit the system. Ortega doesn't fit this system either. And I think he outplayed his expectations that Mark Pope had for him so much
absolutely.
in that junior season that he had. I think he brought him over to be his like defensive guy and to like come in off the bench, fully expecting Kobe Bryant to start that first year. And then he just took a step offensively and was finishing good around the rim. And for that team, he was in a great spot. And it was perfect what you needed from him. He got better this year. Was a lot better this year than he was the previous year. I just don't think it fits the system. And
Yeah,
especially when you talk about running that and that's where I get back to the roster construction and I look at Jalen Lowe, who can't shoot as a point guard. Then you're talking about Ortega, who can't shoot at shooting guard or small forward. And then we saw how Denzel looked playing with both of those guys. That's when he looked his worst. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you talk about, and this is our, transition into the coaches show. You talk about we didn't have all these guys healthy. I don't think this team would have been that much better healthy. And
no, I agree with you on that.
I think the one person that might have been able to change that a little bit would have been Jaden Quaintance, and I think that's probably why he did take that risk and give him that money. But the rest of the roster construction, I don't understand at all because you're talking about Yelovich was a very late add. You ended up getting big minutes from him once you finally started playing him to start LSU. You were fully set on going into the season with Brandon Garrison, Malachi Moreno, and Mohamed Diabate being your three bigs that could play. And like, what? What is that? What was the thought process behind that? I don't understand, and I think the roster construction was awful. I don't think a fully healthy team would have helped this much out either. All right, but we are experiencing some technical difficulties, it looks like, at the Jacob Boyers household. So I'm just going to keep going here, talking about the roster construction and some of Coach Pope's comments. What he was saying during the coaches show, a lot of it sounded very excusey. There was excuses here, excuses there. I mean, some of it was factual, but a lot of it was very pinpointed and very strategic in the way he said it. He compared himself to John Calipari in the last 4 years that Calipari had, the winning percentage they had, NCAA tournament wins that they had as well. It didn't make any sense. And especially this year of all years to make that comparison. I get why he's doing it. He's trying to say things aren't as bad as they seem. But John Calipari earned that by going on that dominant decade run that he had. He earned those years to be able to go like that. And I don't know if Pope knows this or not, but we were ready to run him out of town. And why are you comparing yourself to somebody who's about to get ran out of town? We begrudgingly were about to take him back. He goes to Arkansas, and the rest is history. But they have a great team right now. Darius Acuff is, if not the best player in college basketball, one of the top 3, 5 at the worst. To me, those comments made zero sense, and I'm not sure why he did it. You know it's going to find its way to John. Not that, we're scared of what John's going to say, but it's going to be made into some PR almost nightmare that you're going to see. I saw that Brad Calipari had already commented on it when he had seen it, and there's no bigger clown. And I'm not going to say that. Dan Dockett is still out there, and we still got to get the Michael Wilbon's comments. Brad Calipari mentioned talking about the first decade of what Cal had done. I think those comments were kind of tone deaf, and it really just seemed like a guy who his back was against the wall. It seemed like he was almost like fending for himself, and a lot of times you do have to fend for yourself, but I don't think this was the time or place to do it. I'm going to personally just go through the roster and see what guys I think might be coming back, what guys, we haven't heard anything on or not. Jacob, if he gets back on here, will continue to talk more in depth, but I'll leave you guys here with this. I don't think Jasper Johnson is coming back. We've seen the family is very frustrated with how he was used. They were very vocal. It seems like they just didn't have a very good experience here in Lexington. Colin Chandler. I fully thought Colin Chandler was going to be back for next season. His comments after the game kind of raised a little bit of question marks for me on that. He mentioned how he doesn't want to talk about next year. He just wants to talk about this year. And that's all fine and good. But people are asking you about next year. Nobody wanted to talk about the tumultuous season that you just had and we just all had to endure. But if I had to pick right now of if I think Colin Chandler will be back, I do think Colin Chandler will be back. Let's go ahead. Let's go to Mohamed Diabate. This is one where I think Mo might want to come back, and I have no reason for thinking this. This is purely just speculation on my part. I'm not sure if the staff wants Mohamed Diabate back. Jacob and I have mentioned how the team just didn't gel all that well with him, and it looks like Jacob might be coming back in here now. Speaking to Mo, Jacob and I have mentioned we don't think that he was a fit for this team. So me personally, if I had to pick on whether or not I think he's going to be back for next season, I'd be leaning no. I think he might want to come back. I think especially seeing his bigger role. I don't think the staff is going to, not necessarily not invite him back, but I think he's going to want a bigger role than he had this year. And I'm just not sure that the staff's going to be willing to go to those links to make sure that he comes back. Jake, what are your thoughts? First off, I've just talked about Colin Chandler and Mohamed Diabate. Those are the two guys that I've talked about, whether I think they're here next year or whether they will go. We've already kind of talked about Jasper Johnson. We both think he's probably going to be entering the transfer portal. What are your thoughts on Colin and Mo as well?
Yeah, real quick, I want to go back because I was going to make a point right before I got disconnected here about Ortega and this roster construction. I mentioned it a lot when we were talking about like the mass substitutions, how you're not putting Ortega in positions with, guys that suit him the best when you make these mass subs. I think that goes back to also the offseason. Coming into this year, you knew Ortega Ole was going to be your guy. You were paying him the most money. He was the player you prioritized. We want him back over any addition in the portal, anything here or there.
Do you think that's true, though, honestly? They wanted him more than anybody in the portal?
I do. I think maybe outside of like Yaxel.
I was about to say, I
don't think those
Yaxel,
two are like,
even Donovan Dent, I think might have been ahead of Ortega on just their like power rankings of who they would have rather have had.
If push would have came to shove, I think Pope and the staff would have taken Ortega over Dent. But like those two don't obviously have to be mutually exclusive. But that point being, like, you came into this year saying Ortega is our guy. He's our number one player. If you know this, why are you not building a roster that's going to help him? Because to your point, you're talking about on paper, your starting five would have been Jalen Lowe, Denzel Everdeen, Mo Diabate, and Brandon Garrison, along with Ortega away. You got one shooter.
Terrible.
One shooter out there with him. Like you mentioned how much better he looked last year playing with guys like Jackson Robinson and Kobe Brea, and even Lamont was a formidable three-point shooter, and then Andrew Carr, and how much everything opened up for him. how do you not build a lineup that suits him in that way? So I think that's a huge piece of the roster construction and the failure there. On Mo Diabate, kind of with you. It depends. I mean, if he's okay with taking that kind of role he played this year, I'm for having him back. I don't think he will. I think he's probably gone. Colin Chandler's the one I'm the most confident will be back on this team, just because I think him and Pope have a great relationship. I do still think, like, I feel like we might say it every year with Colin Chandler, but I'm going to say it again. Like, there's still more there with Colin Chandler than we've kind of seen to this point. So I think there's another level there for him. You saw it at times this season. But not to say he's like my number one that I would prioritize coming back. He's just the one that I think I have the most confidence will be on this team next year.
Yeah, so I was with you when, let's say, 10 minutes after the game on Sunday about Colin Chandler. His comments after I thought were a little weird. I still think he is a guy who's going to be returning, and he'd be one of the guys I'm more confident on. But the way in which he had answered questions about next year and all of that, he wasn't as like adamant as guys like Cam and Yelovich were, that they were like, yeah, we're going to be back. He kind of just
I have to be frank. Part of
danced
it
around the question.
is that I didn't watch a second of any of this, and I haven't gone back and watched it because I was so damn frustrated Sunday. So
Yeah, I definitely
Colin
don't
Chandler
blame
could
you.
have said after the game he's 100% not coming back, and I wouldn't have heard it.
No, he didn't say that. He was asked about next year, and then he refused to comment. He just didn't say anything. He said he wants to talk about this year and live in the moment. And while a lot of that could be true, it definitely doesn't sound like he's a guy who's fully coming back. But I still, if I'm predicting whether or not he's coming back, I think he will be. Brandon Garrison. This is where we're at now. I think BG's going to leave. I don't think there's any.
A lot of SMU rumors floating around.
And I mean, that could very well be true. I think he's looking for a bigger role. And I think going into a senior season, especially just playing his best basketball the last, just during the postseason, I think that'll get somebody to take a flyer on Brandon Garrison, make him be the starter, and then he's just gone. I don't think he's going to want to come back and settle and be a six-man, whatever that his role was this year. I think Brandon Garrison will be leaving.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Garrison was a guy for all year I thought was gone, and I honestly couldn't wait for that moment to come. Now he's a guy, if he did want to come back and you told me I was running it back with him and Malachi and, another year of Malachi getting stronger and everything, I would actually be pretty open to that. But yeah, I mean that's not something I thought would happen, but that's where we are. But I think BG's gone.
And he hasn't said anything that would really tip you one way or another. I know he had on his IG story, he had shown, I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but it was like, sometimes it's hard to say goodbye or it's time to leave. And Jake, as someone who's very fluent in putting music on their stories and timing it exactly right to get the message out that you want, that was no, oh, whoops, it just happened to be that in the 10-second snapshot that you got. I think that was deliberate, and I think BG is going to go. I think he's going to have bigger opportunities to be a bigger role on other teams, and for that reason, I think Brandon Garrison's going to be leaving. Now, one of the guys I think is probably one of the guaranteed locks, Braden Hawthorne, I think is fully back. I don't think you have to think too much about that. I was waiting for someone to comment about him being in West Virginia at the game in Morgantown and being like, oh no, they almost wrapped up his recruitment last year and went there. And I was waiting for somebody to just tweet it out and be like, oh, he's going back to West Virginia. He's already there. But I think Braden Hawthorne will be back. And I'm actually super excited to see what he does with the full off season. And I mean, he really just had a year and a half redshirt. I'm excited to see what he is, because we really don't know much about him outside of his high school mixtapes.
Yeah, I think he's back. Reese Potter's practically come out and said he's back, so
Yep.
I expect the 2 red shirts to be here next year.
All right, Jake, let's talk about my favorite, the Yelly Man himself. I personally think he's back. If I was advising him, I would tell him to leave. But I do think Andrea Yelovich is back, and that's somebody that, first off, I love his honesty that he comes into press conferences with. That's very refreshing, to where everybody's like, Pope says fatigue's an issue, and he's like, no, it's not. We just have selfish guys, and that's the issue. I'm looking forward to what Yelovich can do, adjusting to college basketball, being in Lexington for over a year now. Remember, he was a late ad, so everything you've seen, it's almost kind of like Colin Chandler's talk last year, where he had to get back into basketball. I'm looking forward to what Yelovich can do, and I really hope he stays.
Yeah, I would love to see Yelovich back. I mean, this is nothing more than just a gut feeling. I think he's gone. I just think the way the season played out, you know, I don't know. I again, just a weird gut thing. It's nothing he said. It's nothing, Pope said. I've kind of had it penciled in my mind all year that he was going to be gone.
All right, and here's the big one, I think. Jalen Lowe. Because he's come out and said he wants to be back, and that's just where we are now. He's kind of seemed like doesn't know whether or not he's going to be coming back. He's just waiting for the staff to kind of tell him if he's allowed to come back or not. I'm going to say Jalen is not on this team next year. I think they're just... This is the hardest one for me, at least in my opinion, because is he going to be okay coming back and not being guaranteed a starting point guard role? That's not something I'm not sure, and I don't think you can go into next season just penciling Jalen Lowe being your starter, and that's where I find my biggest difficulty in predicting what Jalen Lowe is going to do next year.
Yeah, I think he's gone, man. I don't know how much he really wants to come back either. I mean, I know he's saying all the right things, but honestly, what the hell else are you going to say when you're on a team that's playing? Everybody else is playing basketball.
He loves clapping back at Louisville fans and stuff like that, so I just figured he loved it.
I mean, I'll take that. But yeah, I think it's going to be mutually exclusive of this clearly didn't work out, and maybe it would have been different if you didn't get hurt, but here's where we're at. We have to go out making try to make a splash at point guard in the portal. We're going to do everything we can to do that, and I think he's going to look around and realize he doesn't want that, and I honestly would be very surprised if he's back. I think it's pretty likely he's gone.
That's the thing. And there's none of these guys, except for maybe 3 of them, that I'm going to hold to my ground on. Yeah, they're here. And I fully believe it. And Jalen is high up on that list. One guy I'd say 85% sure is back is Malachi Moreno. This offense kind of suits him well. And especially if he takes a leap, if he's actually going to take that year 2 Mark Pope jump, I think this could be one where you see him drafted next offseason. I think Malachi's back. His family's here. All his friends are here. He's grown up here. I don't see Malachi leaving.
Yeah, I think they'll prioritize him. They'll pay him. I would be very surprised if he's not back. I mean, you mentioned he could be drafted after next year. Hell, the way he was playing in mid-January, I was telling you, don't be surprised if we're watching him go be a late first round pick. But he cooled off clearly down the stretch. But yeah, I think they'll make sure they do whatever it takes to keep Malachi here.
And this is something that I kind of want to talk on. I don't want to pay or overpay for Malachi Moreno. I get PR-wise, it would look bad if he were to go somewhere else. You have to do what Will Stein says. Everybody has a slotted value. We can go up to this amount. This is what we think you're worth. We have this allotment of funds. You can't break the bank for Malachi Moreno.
Unless you got $22 million again. Because at that point, you can almost pay everybody whatever the hell they want.
How'd that work this year?
Well, I mean, that's a different conversation, I think.
I know. I'm here with you. All right. Harlan's own Trent Noah, I think he'll leave. I think, especially later in the season, just not seeing any playing time at all. The season was, I mean, he had more of an impact on last year's team, and the team was better last year. I'm not sure the options he's going to have, but South Carolina, he's still there, still the same staff that's there. I'm sure they might have a spot for him there. I don't think he's going to get any NIL more than he's going to get at the University of Kentucky, but I'm not going to say I'd be surprised to see him back, but I think this will be one where he leaves.
For him, and you kind of hear mixed things about people that are around him. It's honestly just, what do you want to do, right? Are you a kid that wants to go try to make the most of your minutes and play a lot of basketball, or is he kind of content just living the Kentucky kid's dream and knowing that there's going to be games he gets to get in and make his moment, and he probably thinks he can recapture some of that glory he had in the Tennessee games his freshman year? And is he content just kind of being the 11th, 12th man on Kentucky and saying he gets to play at Kentucky? I mean, that's what it sounds like. There's some reports out there that he is. So I don't really know one way or another. If you made me bet, I would say he's probably gone. But again, there's a world where he's just living out his dream, and maybe he says, hey, my last year, my senior year, I'll go somewhere where I can play 25, 30 minutes and at a smaller level. But right now, I'm just going to kind of continue to live what every kid growing up in Kentucky dreams about doing.
Yeah, that's a great point that you made there, and we just don't know the answer. Simple as that. And, we'll have to see what kind of roster Pope can bring in to see if there's even a spot for that type of guy next year. After what happened this year, I don't want 3 spots taken up for a Walker Horn, a red shirt, and another red shirt. I don't want 3 spots just allocated strictly to that, kind of like we had this year. You mentioned Reese Potter has already said that he's coming back. I think we knew that was all part of a plan. Him and Hawthorne were on that same plan. Jaden Quaintance, I don't think we had spent too much time on this.
Draft.
JQ is gone. He said that even before the Iowa State game. So crazy. I want to get that kid a PR team. He's so smart and so intelligent. I'm not going to say his dad is not intelligent because I don't know him that well. But we got to get this guy a PR team because he says things at the worst time, and it's crazy to think about the times in which he says certain things around his future and how he's feeling. Cam Williams, I'll let you start and I'll follow up.
The player that I unequivocally want back the most, and I don't even, in my mind, it's not even close. I think you saw.
That's not what I asked you.
I understand. I think you saw towards the end of the year the kind of leap he can make, especially probably with another full off season. Before the foot injury, you saw how much more comfortable he was in this system. I think he's perfect for Pope's system, being able to play the 3/4. So versatile, can guard 1 through 4. He's the guy I want back the most, and I think the staff will, I hope, prioritize that. And I mean, I'd put it 85% chance he's back. I feel pretty good that they're going to make sure he's back.
I'm there with you. Cam Williams has loved every part of being at Kentucky, and I can't imagine that changes. You mentioned how great he was playing before he broke his foot and the confidence level that he was having right before that happened in the style of basketball. He was getting downhill. He was making himself more than just a 3-point threat. I think Cam is back as well. And now you're talking about, we just went through, Jake, you have you have 4 people staying from
Sounds
this
about
team.
right. Yeah.
I've got 5. You got to do a lot between now and the end of the portal. It's simple as that. This team has got, or this staff has to pinpoint guys like they did the first go around, not the second, because we've seen 2 different cycles.
Yep.
One where they nailed it, one where they failed on almost every aspect. I'm not saying I'm happy with something down the middle, but get me closer to down the middle instead of the polar opposites that we've been on.
I would like to see them really prioritize like 3 guys. Like, I don't want to hear, it's Lamar Wilkerson or Donovan Dent or, like, I want you to come out and say, like, these are our 3 guys. And whether you want to put Stokes as one of those 3, or, again, part of it is, like, we don't even know who's going to be in the portal. There's a couple guys hopping in now, but
I think Caden Lewis could be in the portal, Jake. Just run it back.
maybe. But, like, go like back to kind of Will Stein, and obviously it's completely different when you're building an 80-person roster versus a 12. But like, go find me 3 dudes and let's roll. And I think
it's really not all that different, just roster sizes.
But like, prioritize 2 to 3 really, really good players, and then you figure it out, whether it's Colin Chandler comes back and Cam Williams comes back to kind of play these roles. But like, you tell me you go out and you get 2 of the top 6 portal players. I mean, just think about how much different this year is if you have Donovan Dent and Yaxel over, Mo Diabate and Jalen Lowe. Like, go out there, prioritize those dudes, pay them whatever the hell they want. Like, we talked about this back when, like, the number 22 million, like, was rumored. We were like, it's nice for us to kind of be like the Dodgers after being a Reds fan, or, all these different scenarios we were playing. It didn't work, but like, I almost wonder too, like, how much of that was just we like overpaid the bench guys.
Absolutely.
And that's what it really came down to.
You overpaid. I don't think there's a single player that was on this team that you can say played above what they got paid. Yeah. Even Denzel Aberdeen, like, they talked about how much money that he was making as well. I think you just started getting to the point where Denzel was producing even close to near a level in which you were paying him. I guess the only guys you can say probably played to their level would be Reese Potter and Braden Hawthorne, because that was this game plan coming in. Yeah, even Ortega, and this is a different conversation, but I get it. You can't leave the guy who just was all SEC second team, and you can't let him go. It was too much money. It was.
At the end of the day, though, it's not our money. What else were we going to do with it? Now, if you told me we paid Ortega,
if you're telling me we could have gotten, even giving Yaxel his $7 to $9 million.
Yeah, but
giving AJ DeBonta his what $7 million that he got from BYU. You tell me you could have gotten 2 of those guys, spent $14 million, and then just filled out $8 million on the rest of the roster.
You don't need to be going and giving the whole bench $1 million, and whether you give 10 guys $2 million, like, and you spend 20. I rather.
I'll say that's the worst thing I've ever heard of. Please don't do that.
But like, I almost kind of think, maybe not exactly 2, but like, I kind of think
close to what they did this year. Yeah,
that's kind of pretty much what they did. Like, I bet if you looked outside of Ortega, everybody probably got somewhere similar, from Cam Williams to Colin Chandler to Denzel to, I don't know what Malachi and Jasper got, but like, it was probably still 7 figures or close to it. Like, so I think if you're taking, like, if you have $20 million, you don't need to go build this super deep 10-person team and pay them all. 2, like go give me 3 dudes that you're going to pay 6.5 to every single one of them, and let's roll. And I hope that's what they prioritize this time around.
I'm telling you right now, I don't know who would enter the portal that would be worth giving that money to, but whoever it is, just find. You mentioned
make one of them Tyron Stokes, dude. I don't care.
Simple as that. It really is. And
hire me as GM.
I think this
Everybody's
is where
got a blank checkbook.
Yeah, we're not going to last long here with you as the GM. So let's.
That's fine. It's not my money. Hey, Mr. Kraft, I'm going to need another. I'm going to need another 30 pronto.
This is why you're not going to be the GM. They have to hit this out of the park.
Yeah.
This offseason, they have to hit out of the park. Like, you've put so much stress and emphasis on what you need to do this offseason that you've backed yourself into a hole. And I kind of mentioned while you were gone, Jake, some of the coaches show comments and how it felt like his back was against the wall and he was just kind of fighting his way out during the coaches show, just like trying to throw any sort of point that he could make, whether it was the Cal comments, whether it was the injuries. It felt like he was just, fighting and fending off everybody. And you're in that corner, whether you want to be there or not. It's up to you how you get out.
I gotta say, man, I know we're coming up on time. I'm gonna say it really quick. I hate it.
Well, if you wouldn't have disappeared for like 5 minutes, we would have been fine.
I hated his coach's show comments. I know.
I did too.
I mean, I appreciate it that it finally felt like he was
real,
being real. So like, I do appreciate that aspect of it, but like, I hated it, man. I hate it coming out and talking about the Cal thing. One, for multiple reasons. One, as much as we don't like Cal has been pretty damn generous towards Pope and talked about how he's the right guy for the job and this and that. And like,
oh, you better believe Cal's going to say something.
But like, you take shots at him that I don't think were necessary. You put this extra level of pressure on you, and it comes back to the day Pope was hired, and he's doing his press conference, and he says, "I understand the assignment here is to hang banners." He didn't come out and say my assignment is for 2 years to be better than this program was in the last 4. And like, you're barely better.
I mentioned
we are better.
It was a very cherry picked stat. And very cherry picked.
And the comments about injuries we just spent a lot of time talking about how we don't think this team would have been that much better. And then the nonsense comment about having a left-handed point guard to a right-handed point guard. I mean,
didn't even bring that one up. I didn't want to talk about it.
That's one of the most absurd comments I've ever heard. And you're like, a left-handed point guard works better with a right-handed big. Oh, let's not. But like,
why didn't we run Jasper at the point guard then?
And then he mentioned left on left doesn't work that well, and right on right doesn't work that well. You know what you had last year? You had left on left. Lamont Butler was a left-handed point guard playing with Amari Williams.
Lamont was not left-handed, pal.
Okay, maybe not. He hurt his left shoulder. It was his non-shooting shoulder.
You made me double-check in my own mind there for a second, but yeah.
But regardless, you can be stupid.
We all mess up. All mess up. Mark Pope just messed up on this roster construction. Regardless. He messed up on the coach's show with what he said.
That was one of the lamest and worst excuses I've ever heard.
I thought the worst, and that was awful too. But he also brought up Travis Perry leaving. He also brought up a Caden Lewis leaving. A Caden Lewis, and I had to look it up just to make sure, left on April 10th.
Yeah.
You had so much time to go out, get somebody in the portal if you needed it to, or bring in. I mean, when did Yelovich commit? Was that June or July when we found out that Yelovich was coming? I mean, it was so late into the session.
You took Jalen Lowe knowing that it was going to affect the plan with the Caden Lewis, because you took Jalen Lowe under the assumption that he would be here for 2 years, when the Caden Lewis understood that they were going to go get a point guard for that year, and then Caden Lewis would be the point guard next year. And he left once you pivoted to Lowe. So, like, the second you take Jalen Lowe you had to have known that there's a good chance that Caden Lewis decommits.
Yeah. So for a lot of these reasons, I didn't like
and if
what
your
he
plan
said.
was to come into this, and I know I've been critical of Jasper and called him a more confident Travis Perry. At least there was upside there. Like if your plan was to come into the season with Travis Perry as your backup point guard, like
that's what it sounds like. It was.
That's another.
It sounds like he was truly blindsided by Travis Perry leaving. Like he almost had like no idea that this was a possibility. I'm not sure why he would have thought that.
Talked at the end of last year, and I said pretty much the same thing I said about Jasper now. Is like, I'm fine if Travis wants to come back, but it better be you're coming back to be 10th, 11th man. So, like, if you were truly prioritizing,
I'm not that far with Jasper for this year, but that's where I was at last year.
That's where, and like, if you were prioritizing him to come back and be your backup point guard, that's absurdity, man.
It really is, and the comments on Cal, and I've already talked about it, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but just want to get your thoughts on it. He cherry picked the last 4 years. If you look at year one, or like the last year he was there, 2 years, the last 3 years, the last 5, 6, any of those, the winning percentage was better. All of the other accessible stats were better. He cherry picked 4 and said, we're not doing great, but we're doing better. And that's going to get around to Cal. Brad Calipari already commented on the post anyways, and I already mentioned how much of a clown Brad Calipari is, Jake, so you don't have to. But just want to get your thoughts on the cherry-picked version of the stats and why that's even brought up.
I hate it, man. I hate it, the comment. Regardless, we were ready for Cal to be gone, and that's with him having the best 10-year run that this school has possibly ever seen, and one of the best 10-year runs in especially his first 5 years here or whatever.
And
like
that's what I mentioned. You're talking about a guy who his last 4 years were we were wanting to run him out of town.
Yep.
Like we wanted him gone, and that's what you're comparing yourself to. And you didn't have the 10-year leash that John Calipari had earned. And as much slack as I've given Cal, this, and I was probably one of the first people that I think wanted Cal gone. I mean, it was probably 2020 for me, and I was like on the front end of that. Whether I was right or not, we don't know. But to compare yourself to the worst 4 years the guys had, and be like, yeah, we were a little bit better, and it's barely like this. It's an asinine comment for a very smart individual.
And again, I think it was so unnecessary to do to Cal, because again, like, Cal's taking
especially
shots
when he's in the Sweet 16 and looks like he has a good chance of going further.
He's taken a lot of shots at Mitch and like the administration, and
it's
like we know they don't have a good relationship. They didn't have a good relationship for the 15 years he was here. Like we know that, and when he left it, we knew he was going to do it. But again, like, Cal's been very gracious towards Pope, and I just find it extremely weird. Like, again, every time he said it last year when Arkansas was coming in here, and he's talking about how Mark Pope is perfect for this place, and he gets it, and the fans love him, and he's just absolutely perfect for the job. And then, like, to kind of take a shot at him, I found it really weird. I mean, I haven't heard Pope take a shot at any opposing coach, so I don't know why you would take a shot at a guy that's been nothing but really good for you and generous towards you. It just, none of it made sense.
It still boggles my mind. Jake, is there anything else you want to talk about? We've went a little long here.
I mean, we got plenty to talk about, but
it's a huge off season. I'm sure we'll be back here in a week with some additional news that's broke out. Other assistants leaving, hiring somebody else. I'm very concerned, to say the least. I think 5 guys are coming back. You think 4 are coming back. Really, none of them are giant contributors to this team. Anyways, you're projecting a lot of growth for a lot of those guys, and you have no commits. And I'm looking at the top 50 of guys who are uncommitted. There's 3 guys inside the top 50 from the high school ranks that are uncommitted right now.
And you really only have a shot with one of them.
And that's just
a shot.
and I don't want this to get too negative, so we're going to kind of sign off here. Is there any last thing that you want to say to BBN?
No. If I start going again, we're going to be here for another 35
I know.
minutes. So.
All right, BBN. If there's any breaking news, any recruiting intel, anything that we have, we'll have it here for you. I'm sure Jake and I will probably be back on here next week. We think it's time for us to, get a bye week. It's probably not. We're heating up, Jake. I don't think we're sleeping until maybe like May. I think May is probably when we're going to get some sleep after Kentucky spring practice. Football team, there we go. I mean, yeah, baseball team's looking good. Women's team faces off. Jake, I got a 14-hour drive on Friday.
Have fun, buddy.
If you guys don't think I'm committed to getting you the best coverage of Kentucky women's basketball, I don't know who you think is. Drove to Morgantown, didn't get home until 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning. I'm making the drive on Friday down to Fort Worth to get you guys some content.
With these gas prices, this is absurd.
Don't even get me started. It cost me $75 to fill up my tank, and I almost shed a tear. So, guys, if you're hearing this, first off, if you've made it an hour and 17 minutes into this, I'm sorry. But please make sure, like and subscribe. Help the Cats Talk podcast out in any way you can. And until next time, BBN, make sure to follow us anywhere you get your content. I'm sure we'll see you here soon. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.